I was actually just thinking as you were talking about this. I can imagine, some instructor or some people feeling like, well, why should I go out of my way to make, accommodations for this student or that student? Like, what's wrong with saying, well, either this is the way, you do it, or, engineering's not for you. Like, what's wrong with that way of looking at it?
And there are lots of folks who have that opinion, but luckily, folks who are in leadership positions across the country, whether they're in government or they're in industry or they're in nonprofits or they're in education, have noticed that the pale maleness of engineering in particular is unacceptable, and that when you generate solutions from pale male teams, that's a quote from William Wolfe, by the way, who used to be the president of National Academy of Engineering, when you generate solutions through pale male teams, you end up with limited solutions. So we have all kinds of sort of economic reasons, political reasons for caring that we systematically are generating white male engineers. The most sort of basic one is perhaps it's not fair, perhaps it's not just that we set up rules that select, right, people with certain kinds of lives, shapes of lives, rather than based on their intellectual ability, which is what we ostensibly say we're doing at selective institutions.
Once you do have those diverse perspectives and, you have a team of people working to solve a problem, you're inevitably going to have, a larger variety of solutions because you have a larger variety of perspectives and backgrounds approaching the problem and approaching the issue.
Right, so we have lots more lived experiences because our societies are gendered and raced. And so if you, don't plan for, if you are your pale male car team and you don't think that, for example, pregnant women will be driving cars, you invent the 3-point seatbelt, which is in fact what is in all of these different cars, right? Our regular 3-point system for seatbelts, which has been demonstrated to do damage to fetuses. So if you'd had a diverse team, maybe all of our cars would have H seatbelts, right? 5-point systems as opposed to 3-point systems. This is not my argument. This is Londa Schiebinger's argument, who has a fabulous resource, the Gendered Innovations website out of Stanford, that talks about all kinds of sorts of things. Another one she talks about is why bus routes are set for commuters and not for people trying to drop off kids at childcare or get elderly parents to medical care, for example. So she has a great resource there for thinking about how our everyday practices and sets of social relations are gendered and raced, and how our science needs to be different in order to better design for all of the people that we have. There's all kinds of different research types in engineering education, like there are in most fields. We have the most large-scale, quantitative, big data type research, looking at millions of student records all together and seeing what those patterns tell us, down to the stories of individuals. So people will use interviews, they'll use group interviews, they'll do surveys, they'll do focus groups, they'll do all kinds of different ways, anything that helps us learn from people, right? They'll look at website traffic, they'll look at observations in classrooms, they'll look at other types of behaviors, they'll do diary studies. There's all kinds of different ways that people can study how people learn. And so we use quantitative, qualitative, mixed research methods, and try to do high quality research in all of those contexts, no matter what the source or form of data that we're manipulating. So one of the things I want people to think about comes from actually my trying to help generate this diversity in the college class course when I was a graduate student as part of CERTL at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And that is that there is a research base associated with this. So you may think that there's a lot of commonsensicalness, like you just need to treat people like people and then you will have an inclusive classroom. But in fact, there's all kinds of social psychology, sociology, and other educational research that indicates that that it's not that straightforward, that we have a lot of implicit biases we need to overcome, that we are situated in a society where gender and race fundamentally structure our daily experience, and yet we have engineering colleagues or other STEM colleagues who think that all they need to do is stop being mean, right? That racist remarks or sexist remarks or homophobic remarks are simply individual acts of meanness, like I said at the beginning, and instead start thinking about sort of structural inequality, how we built those into how we evaluate students, how we set up our classes between 9 and 5 most days, that are based on a whole other set of gendered and race social relations. So there's a research base to this, and it's not just something that you have to be a good person, as it were, and a good enough person, and then you will be inclusive. That there is technical, thought out research that can help you figure out how to be an inclusive instructor, right? So it's not necessarily just a commonsensical thing you have to come to on your own by being a good person. There's research that you can base your work on.
Great, that's wonderful. I love how you tied everything together there, and thank you for talking with us today via Skype, Alice. We appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. I was pleased to do it, glad to help, and that's something for all of your participants too to think about. It's like they have colleagues on their campuses who are, I'm sure, happy to talk with them about their classrooms. So to go seek out those folks too is another good message to have.